if I look here at the info, which is now gone. Who took my info? Who took it? Yeah. If I look at this info, can you see, if I look at this, remember now, can you see there is the opening stock and there is the closing stock, right? Sharp? Can you see here is my purchases and here is my returns, ne? And can you see here is my carriage on purchases, and in this case there's no customs because I bought locally. Okay, how do I know I bought locally? Because there's no customs, right? Customs only appears if you buy overseas. Okay, so can you see I've got opening, I've got the purchases with the loading of the cost, and I have the returns. So what are they saying to me here? They are saying the returns work like this, and this is where we started yesterday. The returns were 3 units from August. Can you see that's my cost? And can you see I only work with the cost price, not with the cost and the transport. Why? Because if you read that last sentence, they say, in both cases the transport was borne by the business. What does that mean in normal day-to-day English? Is we're not going to get our transport costs back. Right, it's like when I buy 3 t-shirts at Edgar's and I had to take a taxi to do it, and I go home with the taxi. Now at home when I fit it, I see, ooh, this t-shirt has got a swear word on it, I didn't see it, I need to return it, I won't be able to wear it. So what do? You take the taxi, you return to Edgar's, you return the t-shirt. Are they going to refund you for the taxi? No. So in other words, that t-shirt actually cost you a little bit extra. So now it means you are carrying the cost of the transport. And that's what they are saying here. Okay. Sharp. So is everybody with me? So that's why I say 3 times 4, 740. And 4 units were returned from January. Can you see January? The cost was more, ne? 4 units at 5,650. If they say here that the supplier refunded the transport, ne? Can you see, then you'll also take the transport into consideration. Okay, let's just get a scenario. Remember, when I buy a product, it's my responsibility to get it to my venue, right? So in other words, I need to do the transport. But now I have 2 scenarios. The one scenario is the supplier delivers. It's like the Dean truck that's always here that delivers stationery. Okay? And most of the times, so if Deans make the mistake and delivers red pens instead of blue pens, then most probably they will not charge me for the transport. They will refund me for the transport. You get what I'm saying? But let's say I order from a place and they use external transport, or I get people to transport to me, who's got nothing to do with the supplier. They must not going to refund me because it was not their responsibility if wrong stuff were given to them to be delivered. You get the difference. Okay. So now how will I do this? How many products is left over? Can you see 17? So now I need to give a money value to the 17 unsold units. So with FIFO, I assume first in, first out. What does that say in normal English? The old stuff is sold out first. I'm going to assume that the stock that's not sold is the newest stock that came in. So FIFO will always value your stock at the newest prices. That's what they are actually saying. So you're going to start right at the bottom. So, how many products were in January? Not 16. Remember, how many were returned? 4. You understand that? So in other words, January batch had 16, we returned 4, so I have 12 units, and I assume that 12 units form part of that 17. Does that make sense? No? Because the 17 I counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 17, and now I say, oh, okay, so 12 of that 17 I'm going to value at 5,650 plus 280, ne? Because I'm loading the price with the transport. So you can do it separately. You can say 12 times 5,650, 12 times 280, or you can do what I did and get a total, and the total would be 5,930 times 12, and how much does that give you? Say again. 60. 60. Okay. So now I valued 12 units. How many units am I supposed to value? 17. So what I do is I say, okay, I still need to value 5. I cannot value that 5 at the January price because I didn't buy that many in January. So now I go to the batch just before January, which is November. So I'm going to use November 5 units. So I'm going to say 5 times, what is November? 5,520 plus 260. Again, you can do 2 separate calculations, or you can do one total one like I did. And what do I get the total here? It gives me 0,875. And what's the answer there? Say nicely. 28900. Okay, so my closing stock would be the total of those 2 batches. In other words, 0, 6, 10, 10, 10. There's my closing. You guys happy? I didn't include May because I assume those stocks are sold. Because if you look at it, we say FIFO, assuming first in, first out. So the stock that's not sold yet would be the newest ones. So I start with the newest ones, which would be the latest batch. So I start with January, and then I go back to November. Let's say it was like 100 units. Then I would go to November, then I would go to August, then I would go to May, then I would go to the opening. So I'm working backwards. So actually what they are saying is those units are already sold. And the reason they do that is they want to value the stock at the most recent price. Ne? Okay. So this is still a very accurate calculation. So the next question they ask me, is there a next question? Oh, my papers are so dear, my God. Yes, baby. Why did I minus the 4? It's because when I read here, there were returns. 4 units were returned in January from the January batch, and 3 units from the August batch. So actually, if I look here, January we actually only bought 12. And August, I actually only bought 70 because I returned from the batch. Is everybody sure? Okay, I don't know what's the next question. Can someone tell me the next question? Oh, sorry, here it is. Cost of sales. So cost of sales, now I'm going back to periodic. Okay? I'm going back to periodic by saying, what do? I say opening plus purchases less returns, okay, plus carriage. And in this case, I can almost say it's already there, okay? Because if I look at the info they gave me the total. They gave me the total of the purchases and the transport. So I can somehow put them together there. Okay? You guys with me? Okay? Less closing gives me cost of sales. So let's see. The opening is 51. Okay? The purchases and carriage is 329. You all see where I'm getting it. Okay. The returns, remember I must calculate the returns here. It's that, so I'm just going to write it here. It's the 3 times 4, 740, and the 4 times 5, 650. So who can give me totals for each one? What is the 3 times? And what is the 4 times? 14220. And the 4? And then when I total it, it gives me 36820. So I'm going to subtract 36820. It's always good to show your calculations where I can see it. And then I'm going to subtract the closing. And what is the closing? It's that one, the 10,0060. And in that way, I get the cost of sales, which is what? Okay, and then they can ask you questions. They can ask you what is, if they gave you the sales, they can ask you to calculate the gross profit percentage. They can ask you to calculate what they love to ask is also the stock on hand. And when they ask you the stock on hand in this case, remember now the opening and the closing together divided 2 gives you the average. But what they will most 9 out of 10 times ask you is they will say, calculate this, how long the final stock will last the shop. So what are you then going to do? You're going to take the closing stock, ne, on the cost of sales times 365. You see? And we have the closing stock is 160. Cost of sales is 243,480 times 365 is going to give me days. But can I tell you something else? I don't like using the rand values because I can make mistakes. So another way that we can do it is we can do it through units. So what's my closing stock unit? 17. And then if they tell me here how many was sold, they didn't tell me how many was sold. But if they gave me a unit sold, Okay? I can put that there. Times 365. Okay. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Obviously, the answer will differ from that one. And that's where consistency comes in. So if your business decides to use the rand values, they must always use the rand values so that they can compare this answer with last year's answer. Or if your company decides to use units, then you must always use units. Okay, does that make sense to you? Is everybody sharp with the FIFO? Okay. What